Okay, Charles Hammerback, born 1940.
Do you have a nickname?
Chippy.
There you go.
Yeah. And I got drafted in 1962, I think it was. And I volunteered draft, so I didn't have to wait, which I was very lucky because most of the guys wound up in some heavy combat that waited. So I lucked out there. And then I wound up in Leonardwood, Missouri.
Is that where you took basic,
I
Chippy?
took my basic there in Leonardwood. I got done with basic. Then they shipped me to Oklahoma, to Fort Leonardwood. I think it's
Okay, during basic training, what sticks out in your mind about it?
Well, I was in better physical shape before I went in than when I got done with training because I'd been pretty busy here. And that's waiting all the time in between stuff. It seemed like I didn't have the exercise I was used to. But outside of that, I got along fairly good in there.
When you went in, was there anybody you knew that you went with?
I was a Lone Ranger from Minnesota when I went in, and all the way through, all the way through my whole service career, I only met one other person from Minnesota, and that's when I was getting outed.
Who?
That's when I was getting discharged.
Okay, and who was that?
I don't know his name. He just worked in the main office doing the paperwork, so where it took a guy 3 days to get discharged, it took me 3 hours.
Because you knew him.
Because I was from Minnesota and he was too, so he took care of me.
Very good.
Yeah.
So when you were in basic training, did you go through the normal 20-mile hike?
We did the whole 9 yards. Yep, we did everything. Guys would try to pass out and say couldn't take the heat, but you could tell a guy that had a heat problem and the guys that didn't. You couldn't lie about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you do a night march or anything like that?
Yes, we did everything. I wound up going through them swamps full of snakes, and I was the leader. I had some colored guys behind me, and tell you what, enemy wasn't gonna have to worry about us because they were hollering about snakes all the time, so it was pretty noisy march.
That was in Fort Leonardwood?
That was in Leonardwood, yeah.
And that was basic training, correct?
That was part of basic training.
What kind of barracks did you have when you were there?
Oh, we had the good old World War II barracks with the old coal furnaces and coal heaters. Yeah.
2-story?
If you got stuck on that job, duty, you would come out of there looking pretty dirty by the time you got done on your shift.
Yeah.
They had all that old slate coal. Yeah, that wasn't too funny there.
So you were close to Lake Bronson, or not Lake Branson, right?
Yep.
Did you go to the Ozarks at all, or?
Yeah, well, that'd come up later down the road. I'd have to do a little explaining all the places I've been before I get to that.
Okay.
I wound up in Fort Sill, Oklahoma for my training after basic artillery. I got going in artillery, and then they found out I had a bad ear, and they had to kick me out of artillery. I'd lose my hearing.
How long were you in artillery?
I'm not sure because they took me out pretty right away, and then they made me a POL, which is a gas station attendant, or what I call it. What I do is I took care of all the gas and oils and stuff for the whole company. And the company there was maybe 250 trucks or better for artillery. And that was a pretty nice job, really. Except you didn't want to get it from overseas because it was the first place they try to blow up. You didn't want that job otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So when they asked me if I wanted it on my MOS, I told them no. And then they shipped me out of there, and then I went to That was Fort Sill I was in. And then I wound up in a medical ambulance corps.
And then where was that?
418 Medical Ambulance Corps, they put me in as a mechanic.
When you went to all these places, how did you go? By bus, by train, fly?
Mostly bus. It was all bus. Well, I flew with some with the Army. We flew to some field maneuvers one time in a DC-3, and it was like being in the side of a garbage can, rattling.
Okay.
And with all our combat gear.
So you were in Fort Sill and you ended up in a medical unit in, where were you at then?
Well, then I wound up in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where the medical corps was. And then, of course, I had to take all the classes with the medics too, you know, because we all had to be trained the same. You weren't segregated that way. And so that wasn't too bad. Of course, that medical stuff nowadays wouldn't hold water to anything compared to what we had. And then I wound up there, and then they had a rifle team, post rifle team going on, so I entered that and I qualified for that. So I was in a rifle team.
So how long were you there?
Oh boy. I was gonna say I was probably in that outfit 8 months. I got more transfers and been on more posts than the 20-year vets had that time. Because once you get out of your MOS and they start moving you around and try to find a place for you, it gets to be pretty interesting. I never really got my duffel bags even unpacked on a couple of times because I got transferred too fast. Yeah.
So you're with this rifle unit. What'd you do in that?
There we just went off the range shooting all the time. You had to shoot steady because you'd go all over the country and over the world, all over the world if you're really good. Because they these rifle championship shoots.
Were you expert then, or?
Well, I wasn't in basic, but I made it. I made it in the post rifle team.
Sharpshooter and basic, I suppose, and expert?
Well, no, I don't remember what I got in basic, but anyway, this other one was a lot of fun. But then when I went home on leave, there was we had so many guys and we were one over. So when I went home on leave, when I come back, they said I didn't qualify no more because I wasn't there shooting every day. So they eliminated me out of the bunch. So, well, maybe that wasn't so bad either at the end, because then after that, a bunch of us got together and goofing off and said we could go skydiving and the military paid for it. So we were going to go skydiving, and that sounded like a lot of fun when you're, young. Yeah, and anyway, that Monday we were supposed to go. That Sunday, the instructor skydived in the lake and never come up. So it kind of ended our skydiving career, which we were lucky, because we'd have wound up in over there in Vietnam, right in the middle of that stuff, if we'd had all that training. So that part we lucked out on. Yeah.
So where were you with, so you were in 62, you must have been around the Bay of Pigs and...
Yeah, well, it started out with the Berlin crisis was when we got drafted. That was going, and by the time we got in, then the Bay of Pigs, Cuba broke out, and that's when they had the embargo on Cuba. And I had some friends from town here that was sitting out in the ocean coming home, and they stuck them out there so they couldn't even get out of the service. And then we were called in, and we had to sit there, and our trucks and combat gear all loaded up for about 6-7 weeks before they called it down. it wasn't too bad for me. I was single, but those married guys, that didn't go very good at all. They were climbing the walls and going AWOL and everything else.
Right. Because they weren't doing anything, just sitting there waiting.
Yeah, and they had their wives
Yeah,
at home.
standby.
And we couldn't go to the PX across the street. It was off limits. And it wasn't too funny, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You only let one or two guys go to town at a night. Yeah. That
Cool.
part.
The whole country was on standby.
What's that?
The whole country was kind of on standby at the time.
Yeah.
As far as military went, yeah.
And then we went down to, what should I ask Tommy? We went down to Georgia, around Augusta, Georgia. I forget the military post. There was an MP post. We went down there on maneuvers. And there I got bit by some kind of bug and my face all swelled up.
Really?
Yeah, they were gonna haul me in, and I don't think I went in. I can't remember if I went in or not, because we were in a medical unit ourselves, you know, so. As a matter of fact, the 85th Evac Hospital is still going to this day. I seen it in our Legion magazine here a couple, 3 months ago, that it was still active.
Yeah.
And, see, can't think of anything right now.
So, how long were you in Chippy?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And when you're discharged, where did you get discharged out of?
I got charged out of Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah. Right next to Fort Smith.
Okay.
The town of Fort Smith.
And when you were discharged, what did you do? How'd you get home?
Oh, I flew home.
Flew home?
It was a long flight because there's no flights coming up north. I had to fly to Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, and the airport was still in the middle of the city yet. They were just building a new one. They didn't have it completed at that time.
Is that the first time you flew?
No, I had flew before. That's why I say I flew in a DC-3 with a full bunch of guys. That's before that.
I was gonna say, this is the first time you flew commercially decently?
Safe, yeah, safer. Anyway, and I had to fly there to fly up north here. And then I flew up north and I stopped in the cities to visit a friend of mine. And his wife was just gonna have a baby, and I stopped in and visited him because we were longtime buddies before I went in. And if I wanted to stop there and come straight home, I'd have been home in time for my other buddies up here that were going in, because they didn't volunteer draft.
Mm-hmm.
And they went in and they hit Vietnam right smack in the middle of it.
They did, and they ended up going to Vietnam?
They were going in for basic to go to Vietnam when I was coming home. And that wasn't so good because we lost a few of them, and then when they got home, we lost 3 or 4 in accidents after they got home. It seemed like they had a problem, and it was 3, 4 car accidents there within a couple of years. We lost a bunch more. I think they had that PSC or whatever they call it.
What was your rank when you got out?
It was supposed to have been corporal, but I was up for the corporal, and at that time there was no ranks coming down. And the only rank come down was that one, and I had it, and I was getting out, and I had another guy in my outfit that just got married and had a baby, and so I let him have the rank. I just denied the rank.
That was nice of you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it wasn't gonna do me any good because I was coming home anyway.
Yeah. So you got home, what did you do?
I went back to the shop,
Went back to the blacksmith shop,
to the blacksmithing, yeah.
working with your dad?
Yeah,
Yeah. And you did that for how many years?
oh, born and raised in the business, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I took some time off and went on construction for a while. And,
Remember who you worked for?
I worked for Witcher Construction, and then after that,
That was easy work, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, you earn your money there, I'll tell you.
Sarcasm.
It isn't a construction like nowadays, because you didn't work hard enough, you didn't have a job.
Yep.
And then I worked in the sugar beet plant in Drayton when they were building that. And let's see what else. Then I worked for the city for a while.
City of Argyle?
Yeah,
How long did you work for Argyle, do you remember? Approximately.
I can't remember offhand. We got in a little dispute over wages, and that's when I quit. They had promised us so much, and they never give us that. So.
Okay. And then you work on the Woodlands Cemetery. How long have you been doing that?
Woodlawn Cemetery, I started helping out there. I've been there 40 some years now, or more, I'm not sure.
That's a long time.
Yeah, this has gotta be the end for me this year. It's my last year, cause I just can't do it no more.
Do you figure the military service is good for you, or?
Well, put it this way, I think every kid coming out of high school should have 6 months of military service, right, men and women, right off the bat. It wouldn't hurt the country a bit, and it won't hurt the kids. They could use a little training. They're getting a little too spoiled, and the parents sometimes are worse than the kids.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Chippy?
Not really, no.
Well, I'll tell you, you're well respected in the community of Argyle, and I thank you for doing this interview, and thank you for your service.
You're welcome.